This is the vlog for October 17th, 2018, and tomorrow is a very important day for me. I started this vlog in February, a little bit after my birthday, and it's been a while. In fact, I'm going to have to check a number here. Oh, I can't believe I had that open on my... never mind that. I'm not doing it live. So, gosh. Yeah, okay. It's been 6 years. 6 years since the last Soul Calibur game was released. 6 years ago, I was playing a lot more on my Xbox 360. And in fact, I had played a lot of Soul Calibur 4 on my Xbox 360. But I recognized that Soul Calibur 4 was not a very compelling game. And the critical response was a little bit lukewarm. The commercial response was quite a bit less than warm. But they soldiered on, and Soul Calibur 5 was a better game, but the damage had been done. Most people weren't willing to try out the new version of Soul Calibur because they had been so frustrated with the previous one, and Soul Calibur 5 did not do very well. And the next version of the game that came out was this weird abomination with no versus mode, where the game itself was free, but it had sort of an energy system you'd expect from a phone game, and microtransactions to buy a bunch of armor sets to customize your characters. It didn't do well either. And so I sort of made peace with the fact that Soul Calibur, which is my favorite fighting game franchise of all time, would not be getting any sort of sequel. So imagine my surprise when this year rolled around and it started getting talked about, and the trailers started showing up with gameplay demonstrations and character reveals. But let me go back even farther. I started this vlog in February. Soul Calibur 5 came out in 2012. Soul Calibur 4 came out probably 2009 or 2008. Let's see here. Yeah, 2008. So it was 4 years between Soul Calibur 4 and Soul Calibur 5. And it's been 6 years since Soul Calibur 5, and now Soul Calibur 6 is coming out tomorrow. But the very first Soul Calibur game was out when I was starting college back in 1999 or so. The reason I know this is that the Student Union building had a little arcade. And one of the games that was very popular in there was Soul Calibur. I learned the game at an arcade cabinet. I got good at fighting the guys locally, and we actually had people who came all the way from much bigger and more popular arcades, such as South Center, and played against us. And so I got very good at the game. More than I realized, because when I started playing my friends, I realized I was wiping the floor with them. And it occurred to me that I really was big into the game. I always sort of saw myself as a Capcom fighter kind of a guy. Like, I love Street Fighter, I love Marvel vs. Capcom. Those games really got my attention, got me into fighting games to start with. So when I realized that Soul Calibur was this series where I had sort of become very talented, it made me sort of take a closer look at each game. And by the time I was playing Soul Calibur 4, I was actually getting into the meta. I was following things like 8-way run. I was learning frame data for characters to figure out what moves were safe and what moves I could use to counter other sorts of situations. I am not a pro by any stretch of the imagination, and most of the competitive, if you want to call it that, play that I do with other people is online, which is not ideal for a fighting game. But internet connectivity and fighting game optimization has made great strides in the last 10 years since Soul Calibur 4, the first online Soul Calibur, was released. But it's weird. It's weird, sort of like, it's almost like grieving when a series is basically done, when you realize there's really no chance it's going to make a comeback certainly not the way you want it to or expect it to. And so you sort of go through a process of just, no, maybe it's not that bad. No, it is that bad. This is really sad. Maybe I can convince people. If I just play it some more. It's stages of grief. It really is. And then you finally just accept, okay, this is it. It was a nice run. It had its go. There will be new games, and maybe some of them will play like Soul Calibur. That's fine. And so suddenly here we are. Soul Calibur 6. A reimagining of the original Soul Calibur story, sort of. It's actually the same story, but witnessed from a different perspective, with more emphasis put on different characters. The original Soul Calibur itself was a sequel to Soul Blade or Soul Edge, depending on if you were in Japan or America. The core story of Soul Edge is that the Soul Edge, which was either a weapon or a set of weapons, was supposed to grant the user absolute domination of the battlefield. It was the sword to end all swords, and it was a prize sought by many people. The truth is that it was a corrupt and evil sword that devoured souls, both those that it slayed and that which owned it. It sort of fed off of the owner in a symbiotic relationship. The sword itself looks disgusting. It's covered in fleshy tendrils and typically displays a single eye that scans the battlefield for its next victim. So, at the end of Soul Edge, the previous owner of the swords, Cervantes, a pirate who had died and been brought back to life by the weapon, is defeated by the maiden Sophitia, a Greek woman who has traveled far to find the sword and destroy it at the behest of her god, Hephaestus, the god of the forge. She does this with the help of a ninja warrior from Japan named Taki, and a couple incidental characters who either oppose or help her along the way. And unrelated to them is the German, actually Prussian warrior Siegfried, who is questing for the sword because he thinks it will grant him power. Siegfried is secretly reeling from the realization that after leaving the Prussian army to become a bandit, he accidentally killed his own father without realizing it. That guilt allows Soul Edge, after it's nearly destroyed by Sophitia, to corrupt Siegfried and turn him into a being called Nightmare. Nightmare takes up the remaining Soul Edge, which was at one point 2 swords, and it becomes a massive two-handed weapon that he takes on a rampage throughout Europe, threatening Asia as well. And that's how the characters of Soul Calibur come together. They come from all over the world to try and stop Soul Edge and Nightmare from wreaking any more havoc. A couple of the characters in Soul Calibur, though, were unrelated to the characters of the original story, specifically Killick and Chongfa. Killick is a man of indeterminate descent who appears to be Indian, Hindu, and studies a staff, but he has his own sort of dark secrets that he's not willing to tell people about. Chongfa is Chinese. She uses a Chinese fencing style with a light sword, rapier kind of weapon, but not a rapier. And she's aware that there's something wrong with Killick, but Killick is either unwilling or unaware of what it is and won't talk to her about it. And the two of them also make friends with a pirate named Maxi, who's from the region of Japan that includes the Okinawa Island, and he uses nunchucks, so he's pretty cool. Looks a little bit like an Asian Elvis at times, but whatever. From what I can tell, instead of focusing completely on Nightmare's side of the story, and Nightmare being the one that has Soul Edge and is thus a target by everyone, it looks like this story is going to focus more on Killick, Chongfa, and Maxi, and their relationship with each other, the relationship Killick's condition has with Soul Edge, and the relationship Chongfa has with Soul Calibur, the opposite of Soul Edge. Soul Calibur 4 actually answered a lot of questions about what the swords were, where they came from, and what their original purpose was. They were 2 swords created by this weirdo in Mesopotamia or Babylonia? Anyway, very old dude who may in fact be the inspiration for I can't remember his name now. He's one of the oldest characters of fiction. Um, but he created both weapons. One was more offensive and one was more defensive. But after his son picked up one of the swords, was corrupted by its power, and was in turn killed, he tried to hide the swords or destroy them or lock them away. But while he was petrified in the experience, the swords themselves managed to find a way to escape, either by magically disappearing or drawing unfortunate fools to pick them up and thus become their puppets. Neither sword is actually really good or evil. They are just sort of programmed to do specific things by the original creator. Soul Edge is meant to destroy and conquer. Soul Calibur is meant to defend and control. And so both swords can be used for good if one has the willpower to, control them. But both swords are also not necessarily what the wielder bargains for. And that becomes very apparent in Soul Calibur 5 when Soul Calibur, the sword of defense and control, starts to corrupt one of the children of Sophicia, while Soul Edge corrupts the other, and the two of them end up going off and sort of going into exile while wielding both weapons to protect other people and keep other people from getting their hands on them. So I don't know if that storyline is ever going to get followed up, especially if they reboot this one. And it's been noted that if this game doesn't do well, it may be the absolute end of the franchise. This is sort of the last hurrah for Soul Calibur. So I may buy it twice. I've already bought it on the Steam, and in fact, it's going to be downloading tomorrow, so it's ready to play. And I might try and get it done tonight if it's available at 9 o'clock, like so many Steam games end up being. But I'm probably also going to pick it up on PlayStation 4, because PlayStation 4 has slightly better online code, I think, probably. And usually these games, when ported from a console to the computer, lose something in the translation. So I'm hoping that if I run into some snags with the Steam version, if I get the PS4 version, that won't be an issue. So I've gushed about the history of Soul Calibur and my feelings about it. Tomorrow, I'm almost certainly going to gush about the game itself. So I'm Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.